Hello folks, this is Sullla once again. Welcome to the last video, long delayed, in looking at some of these photos from my travels over the summer. I'm sorry that this has taken so long to get out. This is the fourth and final part of this. Unfortunately, as you can see down here in the date that these are finally getting to these in October from a trip that was taken in July, but I guess better late than never. In any case, two or three quick announcements before I get started. First of all, I want to let people know I'm actually going to be away this week. I'm going to be traveling on Tuesday, and I won't be getting back until Wednesday very late, about 9 to 10 p.m. So what that means is on Tuesday, for the people on our ranked team, I'm sorry, Varys, Spreakaway, K-Hop, and Fallen. I won't be around on Tuesday this week again. So if you can grab somebody and run our ranked team on Tuesday, please feel free to do so. But I am not even going to have computer access on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, I won't be able to do the League custom games because I won't be getting back until quite late on Wednesday. So we'll try to do something on Thursday. But on Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm simply not going to be here. So I wanted to let people know that. Another thing I'll put up here sort of at the beginning of this video that's League related is I know people have been asking for more League games, and I'd be happy to do that, but I have not been playing League much lately, and I can't really do a whole lot unless, I have replays. So if you have replays you want me to take a look at, if you have things you want me to commentate, upload them somewhere online and then PM me a link to them here on YouTube, and I'll try to take a look at that. In particular, some people had said they'd like to see some more bronze medals things where we look at bronze games, but if I don't have the replays to look at, there's not much I can do. So again, if you've got something you want me to take a look at it, I'll be happy to do that, and then maybe I can put more up on the channel. But anyway, hopefully something to keep in mind. If, like I'm saying, if people want to send me something that they think is a useful game, I'll be happy to take a look at it. Alright, anyway, we're going to pick up here where we left off. So I'm going to go in my photos folder here, and we're going to take a look, again, Canada 2013. This is the last part. These are my pictures from time spent traveling in Newfoundland. So that's going to be these last 2 days. If you go back to the last part, the last group of pictures was when I was in Gros Morne, which is also in Newfoundland, but on the west coast, and also some time spent in Labrador. So anyway, we're going to be looking at Newfoundland here. Let me go ahead and, again, Google Maps are our friends. So to refresh your memory, or if you're not too familiar with this, I live down here. I live in the Maryland, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area. So for this trip, I had traveled up to Newfoundland, did a lot of driving. We'll get to the driving again. And anyway, Gros Morne is over here on the west coast of Newfoundland. So these are pictures taken from the last 2 days I was on my vacation, where I drove from Deer Lake, where I stayed, drove over here to the eastern part of Newfoundland, and I'll show you where some of these places are, ending up in St. John's, which is the main city in Newfoundland. But anyway, going to look at some of these, and these first pictures are from a place called Trinity in Newfoundland. So if you're curious where that is located right here on the map. If I zoom in, it will pop up and see there's Trinity right here. So that's where these pictures are taken from. This is a historic town in Newfoundland. Was highly recommended in a lot of the guidebooks, so I went ahead and checked it out. Look, it says incorporated in 1969, but apparently there's been a settlement there since the 16th century. That's the 1500s. So anyway, here are just some pictures, and this is a good shot of what it looks like. Very standard appearance for these towns that are located pretty much anywhere in maritime Canada, but especially in Newfoundland. You see a lot of very colorfully painted houses. So to give you some pictures of this, here's the sign, Trinity, one of the oldest settlements in North America, blah, 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 all this stuff. Was first visited by a Portuguese explorer on Trinity Sunday in 1501, and then people have been living there since some point in the 1500s. Although not that many, never all that many people. Anyway, this was in their visitors center. They had this big map on the wall where someone had taken a satellite picture and then labeled it. So it seemed like an interesting overview. So anyway, here's Trinity. This is the historic town. Later, immediately after this, I went over to this place, the Skirwink Trail. You'll see some more pictures from that in a minute, and then little descriptions from people. I like this one here, little eyewitness account. When my mother was young, the arm would freeze over and they could skate to Dunfield. It all seemed idyllic. So apparently, back in the past, when the climate was a little bit colder, the harbor would freeze over and you could walk from Trinity over here to Dunfield. That just seems kind of crazy to me, but I guess it does get pretty cold up here in the winter. Anyway, just some more pictures of the downtown of the area. This is apparently a local theater. I did not see anything there, just saw the building on the outside. Some more of these flowers. Maybe someone knows what these are, but anytime the 2 times I've been in maritime Canada, I've seen these everywhere, these purple flowers. So I don't know what they are. They're just obviously some kind of wild thing that grows, but they're quite pretty. And now this is the church in Trinity. Really like this church. Was one of my favorite things I saw on this particular day. So this is, as the sign says, St. Paul's Anglican Church. Third one built on this spot. First 1730, second 1821, third 1892. This is the third one. A lot of the older, I can imagine that the older ones probably either fell out of use, fell into disrepair, or quite possibly burned down. That's quite common actually with older buildings. They get caught by fire. But anyway, this is what the interior looked like. I thought that this church was lovely to see. Very pretty. It's all made out of wood. It had a very old-fashioned feel to it. And it reminded me of some of the churches that I saw in parts of Scandinavia, which were also all made out of wood and had sort of that very rugged feel to them. This one, though, is, of course, Anglican. Because most of the people who settled in Newfoundland were a lot of English settlers in Newfoundland, also a lot of Scots as well, but this particular area is apparently Anglican. There's the altar. The lighting, I could not get the best lighting in here, unfortunately. It's a little too bright, a little overexposed, I think you'd say. Anyway, and of course the 2 flags, a Canadian and a British flag. By the way, there's a very strong British identity in Newfoundland, even more so than in other parts of Canada, because Newfoundland wasn't even part of Canada until, I think, about 1950. Right around there is when it joined. Prior to that, it was still a British colony. And then this is looking back. This one's a bit blurry as well. Didn't quite come out as well as I would have liked, but it's, could be worse. This was something that was on the wall inside the church. Plan of pews in St. Paul's Church, allocated January 15th, 1894. I thought that was pretty interesting that they had saved that. This was where people in the town had their assigned pews back in the 1890s when this was first built. Anyway, it was interesting to me. Another little shot of just the harbor front of the water right there. This was looking across the arm to some of the other houses in the vicinity. It was getting pretty foggy when I took this. It was kind of neat. All right, that was all for Trinity. This is now the Skirwing Trail. Again, this was something in the guidebooks for the area, was very highly recommended. It is a 5K hike, so very short, about an hour's length of time, but was listed as one of the best places to hike, not just in Newfoundland, but in all of Canada was listed. And it was pretty good. For a very short trail, this one was pretty neat. So anyway, here's what it looks like setting out. There were a couple places to park right next to this, but anyway, going ahead. But I could go back. Caution, use at your own risk. By the way, there is some danger of falling off cliffs on this trail that you'll see later on. And here's the road trail curving through this little village or whatever. In any case, though, the attraction on this trail is it goes along the Newfoundland coast, and there are all sorts of rock formations, many of them quite impressive. So you'll see that here. This is looking down at one of them. And then, again, looking down the cliffs, lots of these vertical cliffs are, I don't know, maybe about 50, 60 feet high, roughly 20 meters, and looking down at the water. The weather was pretty neat, too, just because there was all this fog rolling in. Here's one of the rocks sticking up out of the water, and a little seagull on top, so interesting enough. This, what this also looks like is, it looks like the Hopewell Rocks, which is a place I visited in New Brunswick, which is on the Bay of Fundy. Maybe I'll show the pictures for that at some point, but it looked like that. Maybe someone's been there to the Hopewell Rocks. All right, so more of the coastline. Pretty neat stuff. Again, lots of great pictures. Again, in order to take these pictures, you had to walk up to the edge of the cliff, and it was I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say it was dangerous, but you wouldn't want to, you don't want to be too careless, I guess I'd say. I love the way that the water looks in this picture, the greenish tint to the water. And of course you've got the cliffs and all the pine trees, the fog. It made for some pretty good pictures, I have to say. Came out pretty good. Here's another one showing the foggy coast. This is kind of what I think of when I think of a place like Maine or maritime Canada. Just kind of a coastline that looks like this. And of course Newfoundland is even more isolated and even more rugged because it's even further to the north. At another point, the trail curved through part of the forest here. Note that none of the trees are that tall. Again, they can't grow that high because of the climate right on the coast. And then here's another shot looking down. You can see the fog rolling in again. Looks pretty neat. I don't know if I take too... I always wonder if I take too many pictures or not enough, because I do have some friends that are into photography, and they take way more than I do, but I always feel like I take too many sometimes as well. This is another place where the path went up this particular hill that was exposed to the wind. It was very windy here. I just thought it made for a pretty cool picture. Very green, because this area gets a lot of rain. Here's one of the trail markers. This is the 3K mark on the 5K trail, and of course the fog had rolled in, made it pretty hard to see. More shots of the coast, more of the rocks, more of the ocean lapping up against the rocks. And then this was a little beach. There were a couple people down there, 2 or 3 people. I think they're having a lunch or something. But black sand beach, interestingly enough, you don't see the black sand beaches very often. Their famous ones are in Hawaii, but for whatever reason, this one was a black sand beach as well. I don't know if that's natural or man-made or what, but it was pretty cool. And that was it for Skirwink. But I do have, if I exit out here, I did have did shoot some footage here, video footage. So if you want to see what the wind was like and what the fog was like, this is a better indication of that. So I'll just go ahead and let this play, give you an idea of what it looked like to be here. It's very quiet, as you might imagine, just the sound of the waves on the beach. And this is where you can see the fog rolling in and the wind. It was very windy. Oh, there were 2 other people here, 2 women. I don't know who they were. Tourists, I guess. So anyway, just to give you another idea of what it looked like in a place like this. Would definitely recommend this to anyone who's traveling in Newfoundland. Obviously a little hard to get to this place, kind of in the middle of nowhere. Again, going back to the map, Trinity's right here. And again, Newfoundland itself is not all that accessible. You had to drive a good half hour to an hour off the Trans-Canada Highway. But, you know, if you can get there, it's pretty cool. All right, now the other reason to go here is there were some other things in the area too. This was a place where you could go and see a puffin colony, the little birds. So that's where this is. This was the visitor site, but then they directed you to the actual puffin site in Elliston, which advertises itself as the root cellar capital of the world. I don't know much about that. I mean, they did have root cellars there, but I was just there to see the birds. So anyway, someone had made a puffin chair, which was kind of funny. They had painted this to look like a puffin. But anyway, so there's the town of Elliston, very small. I'm sure it only has a couple hundred people in it. Not much there to attract interest, but aside from their root cellars, I guess. But the big draw is that there's a big puffin colony. So anyway, you park your car, you walk out, and by the way, this is quite pretty. This little headland here that juts out into the water. But anyway, you walk out onto this, and there's all the birds. They nest on these little tiny islands just off the coast. There's all kinds of birds. So anyway, walk out there, and there's other people taking pictures, and there they are, all the little puffins. Lots and lots and lots of puffins, thousands of them, nesting, and I guess they're feeding. They eat a lot of the insects that fly around here, and there are in fact quite a lot of insects buzzing around too. But anyway, that's a picture of what they look like. They're quite small. They're not very big as far as birds go. They're quite cute though. They look a lot like penguins, although I think that they're a different type of bird. But anyway, they were everywhere, these cute little guys. By the way, they would come right up to you. They weren't scared of people at all. They would hop up to within 2 or 3 feet, about a meter away. They would get very close to you, and it didn't seem to bother them at all. So I don't know whether they're just used to people being there and taking pictures, or they just don't care. One or the other. Anyway, they're cute birds. So there's a couple pictures of them for you. And here's another one. Oh, by the way, there are also lots of seagulls who are not such cute birds. And on their islands out there, there's bird poop everywhere. So you wouldn't want to go out to their nesting grounds anyway, because they're pretty disgusting. Just get close enough to take a few pictures, and that's probably enough. And anyway, so this is the view back, by the way. Here's 2 more people walking up. But you know, as cool as it was to see the birds, just this location was pretty impressive as well. The whole coastline is worth seeing. It's very green where the grasses grow because of all the rain, but then you get the mixture of the green from the grasses. You have the white and the brown from the rocks, and then you have, of course, the blue of the sea and the sky. So it makes for a nice mixture there. All right, these pictures are from Cape Bonavista. You can see Bonavista here on the map, way up here. And this picture is taken from the Bonavista headland, which is up here, right here at the edge. There it is, Provincial Park. There's a lighthouse up here, although you can't see it obviously on Google Maps. But anyway, so that point way up here in the corner. So Bonavista is, again, not the easiest one to get to. It was quite a drive, but since I was already here for Trinity, I figured I'd go and see the Bonavista little headland there. All right, so there's a lighthouse at the end. That's what this picture of. And why? There's the sign saying the same thing, Cape Bonavista Lighthouse. So there's the lighthouse. The lighthouse is not in such good shape. They need to fix this up because the building is in disrepair. It needs new siding. It needs a fresh coat of paint. It looks like it's getting pretty run down, and that's a bit sad because this is a historic lighthouse. This dates back to sometime in the 1800s, some point in the 19th century. It's one of the oldest lighthouses in Canada, or at least it's one of the oldest in Newfoundland. So anyway, they should fix this up and restore it because it's kind of sad that it's falling apart now. And the rest of these are just pictures of the surrounding area. Newfoundland is known as the Rock. That's what people call it. And pictures like this certainly show why. It is very rocky on the coast. There are not a lot of good harbors on the coast, as I understand it. The ones that are there are pretty treasured. So anyway, I mean, look at this. It's just sheer rocks going down into the ocean. Makes for some great pictures, don't get me wrong. If I had been, if I had more time, I was on a tight schedule all throughout this vacation. If I had more time just exploring this area, I mean, you could have spent hours just, climbing around on the rocks. If I were, 12 years old again, I would have loved to go to a place like this and just climb on the rocks and explore. So anyway, this just gives you an idea of what the surrounding area looks like at Cape Bonavista. Now, the other thing that this is known for is this is the location where John Cabot is supposedly landed in the New World for the first time. I'll read this here. In early May 1497, John Cabot, a Venetian citizen, bearing letters from Henry VII, sailed from Bristol in the Matthew, his ship, to seek a western passage to Asia. And on June 24th, he made landfall somewhere on the east coast of Canada. Although we don't know exactly where he landed, local tradition records Cape Bonavista as the landing spot. So, did he actually land here? Well, we don't know, but tradition has Cape Bonavista as the landing site. So there's a statue of John Cabot here as well. Now, Cabot is someone that I feel a little bit of a connection to because I've actually come across Cabot's voyage in 3 separate places. So first of all, here at Cape Bonavista, which is where he landed in Newfoundland, up here. On my previous trip to Atlantic Canada, when I was in, let's see, where's this under? Maritime Canada, I found his landing spot on the Canadian mainland in Cape Breton. So watch this. See this picture here? On 24th June 1497, the Matthew out of Bristol landed with a crew of 18 men. John Cabot discovered blah, blah, blah. It's to commemorate this important event that this monument has been erected by the Cape Breton Historical Society. So there's another statue in Cape Breton that also purports to tell where John Cabot landed in America. Did he land in Newfoundland? Did he land in Cape Breton? Well, we're not exactly sure, but Cape Breton is also claiming to be the landing site of John Cabot. By the way, this is the landing site in Cape Breton. It was pretty, very rugged, pretty forbidding, similar idea, a very hostile shore. And then even that's not enough because when I was in Britain in 2009, when I was there doing my study abroad, I was in Bristol, and guess what you saw in Bristol? Well, hey, look, it's a reconstruction of the Matthew, of John Cabot's ship. See? So this is a modern-day reconstruction of what the ship looked like. Oh, by the way, I was with a group of students. I was the graduate assistant for a study abroad group. And anyway, these were some of my students goofing around on the Matthew. But anyway, so that's three separate places where I've run into the whole John Cabot thing. In Bristol, in Cape Breton, and then again in Newfoundland. So anyway, for me, it's kind of kind of interesting to see that sort of thing. Alrighty, anyway, so back to the pictures. Alright, so the rest of these are from St. John's. So after I, toured around this area, I had to get back in the car, drive from Cape Bonavista down here to St. John's, which is the main area, sort of the biggest city in Newfoundland, by far the biggest city. I also had, by the way, I had a torrential rainstorm on this drive back. Pretty much the only time it rained on this whole trip. I was very fortunate, but that drive was not my favorite drive. Very, very heavy rain. But by the time I got to St. John's, it had cleared up. These pictures are from a place called Signal Hill, which overlooks the city of St. John's. So here's like the downtown of St. John's. Signal Hill's over here. Let's see if it pops up on the screen. Oh, here it is. All right, never mind. I was wrong. Signal Hill right here. Signal Hill National Historic Site. So this is what overlooks St. John's Harbor. All right, so here's some of the pictures of that. We'll go to full screen again because it looks better. This is Earth's Geological Showcase, the Johnson Geo Center, with the Canadian spelling, by the way. As an American, that always jumps out. After you've seen the top of Signal Hill, come in and see beneath it. Aren't you curious? No, not that curious. Didn't really want to see the Geo Center. But this was here. I thought it was worth taking a picture. All right, there's a look up at Signal Hill. Up top there. Be going up there in a minute. And here's a look overview of the city of St. John's. This was in the early evening, about 7:30 p.m., and here's a view of the harbor. This is a gorgeous natural harbor, and then the city is located on the west shore of that harbor. So there's going to be some more pictures. This is the overlook here. This is apparently, according to the signs, this is the place where the British may have executed some French soldiers during the 7 Years' War that was in the 1750s and 1760s, for the curious. So that's why there's a cross here. Not for certain that they did, but they may have executed some French soldiers here. So that's why there's the cross. And here's another view of the harbor. Signal Hill stands proudly above St. John's Harbor, which may be the world's most sheltered port. I don't know about that, but it is a very well sheltered port. This shows you here why it's such a nice harbor. So here's the harbor, and then there's this, what's the word I'm looking for? Islet sort of thing, known as the Narrows, and the hill overlooks it, and then you get the ocean out here. So, nice little diagram. There is the little tower on top of Signal Hill. Cabot Tower, named after John Cabot, of course. Now, unfortunately, I got here after the tower was already closed, which was unfortunate. I would have liked to have seen it, but it closed at 5, and it was getting close to 8 p.m. at this point. It was close to it closed at 1700 hours, and this was about 20. But in any case, you can still see the outside of the tower. This is supposedly famous because it's where the first transatlantic radio broadcast was done. First broadcast across the Atlantic. Well, I guess on the telegraph. I guess not on the radio. Radio, telegraph, something like that. But they did the first transatlantic broadcast from here. And there's a view looking down. So this is the Narrows, as I said. And, protects the harbor. And ships leave from here and they cross the Atlantic and they go over to the other side. So there's a view. In fact, I was lucky. There was a ship leaving right as I was there. See this Ocean X cargo ship with the big boxes? This is how, if you don't know this is how most of the world's goods are shipped, are in huge cargo ships in giant crates. This is how most of the world's goods travel from place to place. So it looked like one of them was leaving right now as I was taking this picture. All right, anyway, but there's another view of the tower. And then this here, it looked like there was this young couple with a professional photographer. I'm assuming this was involved with a wedding of some kind or something like that. But in any case, they had a photographer taking their pictures. Signs showing how far it is, blah, blah, blah. Note that Dublin's only about 2,000 miles, a little over 3K away. So, St. John's is pretty far out there on the map. I'll show it in a minute or two. And from here, there's pretty much nothing to the east. You pretty much can't go any further east until you cross the Atlantic. So there's that cargo ship. I'm assuming it was heading over to somewhere in Europe because, again, once you head east from St. John's, there's really nothing there until you get over to Ireland and the rest of Europe. There's another hill. This is the hill I climbed up, and then these are just some pictures looking down on the city, looking down at the residential areas, and then another view of the harbor as it started to get darker and darker. So anyway, that's the last picture from this particular day. And that was my day traveling through Newfoundland. Again, the show on the map, if you're curious, go back to Google Maps here. Again, once you leave St. John's, so here's St. John's, right on the eastern tip of Newfoundland. Once you leave St. John's, there's not much there until you cross the Atlantic. So again, I'm assuming any ship heading east was going over to Europe because, well, as I said, there's nothing there until you get to the other side of the Atlantic. One of the reasons why it makes for a natural harbor. By the way, again, look how much further east it is. You know, compared to say New York, for example. You know, you have to go a good at least 1,000 miles. I think it's somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 miles to go from New York to St. John's, and then from there it's not not that much further over to the other side of the Atlantic, but certainly in an interesting position. Kind of in a strange spot. The city I compare St. John's the most to is it reminded me a lot of, hold on here, got to scroll out further. Reminded me a lot of Reykjavik in Iceland. Similar idea, kind of on the coast, gets very cold, foggy, rainy a lot of the time. It really reminded me of Reykjavik, which I was there in 2005. Yes, in 2005 was when I was there, yeah. So a number of years ago at this point. But anyway, so let's finish up with this. Don't want this to run on any longer. One of my weaknesses is doing anything in a short period of time. I'm very verbose. All right, anyway, these pictures are all from St. John's, or the first group of them are. So one of the things that St. John's is known for is it's very hilly, and there's lots of these sort of apartment buildings that are on hills, and it's known for being very colorful. Very bright colors on the building. So you'll see a lot of that as I go through these. Anyway, this picture is showing where I stayed. This hostel building right here was pretty nice. Wasn't as nice as some of the others I stayed in, but was solid. Was also a little bit more expensive. This one was breaking the bank at about $35, which is expensive as hostels go. I think with tax it was over $40. So as hostel goes, that's very expensive. But there aren't a lot of places to stay in St. John, so I was pretty happy. Pretty happy with this one for the one night I was there. More of the colorful buildings. You will see a number more pictures like this, but one of the reasons is it's cloudy and overcast and raining most of the time, so people who lived in St. John's decided, let's make our houses very colorful to try and offset that. All right, these pictures are from, well, Harborside Park. As you can see, this is what it looks like. This is one of the innumerable Great War memorials that get dedicated to soldiers who served in the Great War, and in other words, in World War I. So it's a victory monument to that. It's very well maintained, still well kept. They still have these wreaths on the monument. Looked great. Was impressive. Anyway, here's the zoomed in. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. 192 men of the Newfoundland Royal Naval Reserve, 1,300 men of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, 117 of the Merchant Marine, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, all for World War I, for the Great War. Was erected by Field Marshal Sir Douglas Haig, was there in July 1924, was when they dedicated this. Here is a statue to the two dogs that are well known from this particular area. The Labrador, named after Labrador, and the Newfoundland, named after Newfoundland, of course. By the way, the Newfoundland dog, these dogs are enormous. I don't know if you've ever seen one before, but they are humongous. They're big enough that they can give small children rides. And these statues kind of show how big they are. Oh, there it is. You can see in the background. Our dogs, the Newfoundland and Labrador. So, statues of the dogs. And here's a view of the harbor in early morning. The sun is coming up. This is about 8 a.m. for the curious. So the sun's coming up, and that's a view looking out over the harbor in the morning sunrise. Not too busy in the morning on the streets, so I wanted to get a view of Water Street, which is the biggest touristy commercial street. But guess what? In the early morning, not too many people there. Not too many people on here. This was a Saturday, I think. Yeah, this was a Saturday. So a lot of people, most people had probably been out Friday night. So Saturday morning, early morning, not too much going on. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like. This is one of the official buildings. I don't know which one it is, but just took a picture of it. Here's the local brewery in Newfoundland, in St. John's, Yellow Belly Brewery, public house. If it had been open, I would have gone inside, but it wasn't. They advertised this on a lot of their touristy stuff, so I figured I'd take a picture. I wonder if their beer's any good. I don't know. Didn't have a chance to try it because I was only in St. John. I was not even in St. John's a full day. I got there late at night. I said I got there at like 7 or 8 at night, and I was gone by like 10 a.m., so I did not have much time in St. John's. Here are some of this is the industrial part of the harbor, the workboats, the huge cargo crates, so not the prettiest part, but another view of the harbor looking back. By the way, there's the tower where I was the previous evening. There's Cabot Tower on the top of Signal Hill. You can get on Iceberg Quest ferry ride, I guess. Oh, or no, it's Cetacean Quest. There's a lot of whale watching in this area. You can find whales. I did not see any on my trip. Here's another view of one of these streets. Again, I'm sure it's hopping at night, but when I was there in the morning, there wasn't too much going on. This is like the club slash bar slash strip club district. I don't know if that's the fair thing to say, but if you check out this sign down there, you can see there's some somewhat sketchy stuff there. Here's the city hall. Not too much more to say. Couldn't go inside. Not the prettiest building in the world. Now this one, this is a vendor on the street. This is Long Dick Sausage Emporium. Great name, by the way. They actually have a whole explanation of it right here about this guy who was known as Long Dick. But obviously, that you don't come up with a name like that by accident. They're obviously in on the joke here. So it was closed. I was not able to get anything to eat at Long Dick Sausage Emporium. But I don't know, if it had been open, I probably would have had to get something. So raise your dongers. Anyway, here is the Civic Center in St. John's, the Mile 1 Center. This is where the St. John's Sea Dogs play. But I was looking for promotional stuff on them, and I didn't see anything. So just the one picture of the outside. But anyway, it's the local hockey team for St. John's, and they do have the minor league hockey team. More of the apartments on the hill with all the colored stuff. Again, you see a lot of them. Little park. This is dedicated to, I believe, the police or the firefighters in St. John, something like that. This is one of the churches. I would have liked to have gone into this one. I believe that this is the Anglican church, I think. Yes, it is. Okay. Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. I would have liked to have gone inside, but it was not open at the time. So just some pictures showing what this looked like. It looks like quite a nice, done in the Gothic style. I'm sure it dates to some point in the mid-19th century when Neo-Gothic was all the rage in architecture. It looks pretty weathered. Looks like it's been through a lot of storms from what I can see, but I was not able to see inside. This cat was just out on the street, and I hope that this cat had a home and was just out, but this guy was really cute. He kept rolling over on his back and like pawing at the air. Wanted people to pet him. So hopefully this cat is okay, because this cat was adorable. It just wanted attention. I'm hoping that the owner just let this cat out for the morning or something, and that this wasn't a stray. The cat looked like it was pretty well taken care of, but there was no collar on this cat, so I don't know. But was very playful, was goofing around here. So anyway, this is the big museum, or biggest museum in any case, in St. John's, known as the Rooms. It's pretty highly rated, an art gallery, museum, archives, cafe, gift shop. A lot going on here. It's relatively new. It's been built in the last decade or two. Again, I would have liked to have had more time to go in and explore. The problem was I had to be on a ferry back to the mainland by 5 p.m. this day, so I couldn't spend a great deal of time here. So I just took some pictures of the outside. It looked pretty neat. They were doing construction, of course. Always doing construction. And then this was the other big church in St. John's. I think that this is a Catholic one, but I'm not entirely sure. Yes, this one is Roman Catholic. Okay. Dedicated 1855. So that's just a couple views of what this looked like. And this one was also closed. I could not go inside. So just the exterior. This was right next to the Catholic Cathedral. This one had, I like this one. It says Memorial Chapel for Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee in 1892. So long memories in places like St. John's. That's the legacy of being part of the British Empire. And of course, I'm a historian of British Empire, so I can tell you a lot about that. This is another church, but this one's new. This one is obviously not historic. Looks like it was built in relatively recently. I just took a picture of it as I went by. Not too much more to say. More of the houses. Again, you see these everywhere in St. John's. On the hills. Very brightly colored. Here is, what is this? Provincial Historical Site. This is a colonial building that's being restored. It was not in good shape. It looked like it needed restoring. It was all overgrown and falling apart, so I didn't see too much of that. Just took a picture from the outside. Here's the government house. This is where the governor of Newfoundland lives. The governor is sort of a formal post. The governor doesn't really do anything. It's like an honorary post. And anyway, a Canadian could tell you more about this than I can, but this is the governor's house. It's a kind of a plum post where you don't really do anything, but you just have ceremonial importance. So anyway, that was what that looked like on the outside. Some nice flowers, and right outside the governor's house. And these last pictures are taken outside the Parliament building in St. John's. So just so we're clear, during the course of this trip, I went to the Ontario Parliament in Ottawa, the Quebec Parliament in Quebec City, and the Newfoundland Parliament in St. John's. So, collect the full set. I also went to the British Columbia Parliament building in Victoria. So I've been to, what, 4 different provincial parliaments now in Canada? It's more than most Americans can say. Anyway, this is not a pretty building. It's not a historic building. This is the Newfoundland Parliament. And of course, it's under construction. Like everything's under construction, so not too much to see. Confederation Building, Government of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I guess you could go in, but, you know, I didn't bother. It was under construction, and it did not look like a place tourists were really encouraged to go. All right, anyway, here's another statue of John Cabot. Same statue as the one we saw in Cape Bonavista. There's a big shield. I wonder if this is the provincial shield or not. I don't know. But that's the Newfoundland flag up there. For the curious, you can't see it too well. Probably should have gotten one of those. I bought a Labrador flag, but I don't have one for Newfoundland. And in the distance, there's Signal Hill. And there's Cabot Tower, just looking in the distance. The harbor is, well, down there between the 2 cliff walls. Okay, then these final pictures are from Cape Spear. So Cape Spear is close to St. John's, very close. On the map, here's St. John's and there's Cape Spear. Cape Spear is a local park, and Cape Spear is noteworthy because it is the easternmost point in North America. There is no point to the east of this. It is as far as you can possibly go in North America. You cannot go any further to the east. So anyway, I wanted to check this out, and there's some pretty neat stuff there. Now, Cape Spear was also suffering from very heavy fog when I was there. These people were biking down there. I don't know what they were doing, why they had bikes down there, but another one of those little coves on the coast. So anyway, here's the information building. This park opened at 10. We were all hanging around. It was just before 10. We were waiting for them to open it up. So anyway, Cape Spear was opened up by their Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales. That was Charles and Diana in 1983, and it's a National Historic Park. So, all right, here's an overview of what's at the site. This is what it looks like without the fog. There are some historic lighthouses here. There is a World War II defensive battery when they thought might actually be attacked. There are also whales very frequently around Cape Spear. I believe that there were whales when I was there too. We could hear something out there. We think there were whales out there, but it was so foggy we couldn't see anything. But we could hear something out there. So there might very well have been whales out there. Anyway, here's a lighthouse, the historic lighthouse. This dates back to sometime in the 19th century, sometimes in the 1800s. Anyway, it's all been reconstructed to what it would have looked like back then in the day. So these are some pictures of the interior of what it would have looked like. These are all signaling flags that you use. There's a language of signaling flags. I don't know what it is, but different flags stand for different letters and numbers. And reconstruction of different barrels. This one, the sperm oil. I got a kick out of that one. Obviously for sperm whales, but and you'd think that they just put whale oil on the barrel. Anyway, and this is a look on the inside at where the lens would have been, or where the fire would have been, whatever, but it's not there. This is not an operational lighthouse. Now, this is an operational lighthouse. This is the other one. There's actually 2 lighthouses here, and this is the modern one. This was built in the 20th century, and this one is still in operation, and you can see why. When it's foggy like this, you need ships need that light to be able to see where they're going. So, I know they have GPS, but you can't just rely on GPS. It's not always 100% accurate. So anyway, that's what the lighthouse looks like, and I managed to get the picture showing when the light was revolving around. The light goes into circles. This was managed to capture it when it was revolving around. All right, so anyway, that's looking down on the coast, and they have all sorts of warning signs telling you not to go down by the water, because apparently quite a few people have been killed when they went down on the rocks, and then a big wave came and just grabbed them and pulled them into the water, and then they drowned. So they tell you, do not go down on the rocks. You can be killed if you do that. Yeah, here it is. This one is different. So there was a foghorn that was going off every 30 seconds. Warning, foghorn may sound without notice, sound level dangerous to hearing. It was very loud. Every 30 seconds I timed it. The foghorn went off. Because of the fog. So anyway, you cannot go down on the rocks. Well, you can, but they take no responsibility if you go down there. The other thing, as I mentioned, there's a World War II battery here where there were soldiers in World War II. They set up a couple guns here. They were worried about German submarines, which, by the way, were prowling around in the North Atlantic. So that was not a baseless fear. But the barracks have totally fallen apart. They're in terrible shape. They really should restore this, but this is what's left of them. They've crumbled and they are not in good condition at all. But anyway, a couple pictures of what that looked like. And then here it is. Canada begins here, or ends, depending on which way you're going. Canada commence ici. Usatermin, you see, depending on the direction. So anyway, there's just the sign saying the most easterly point in North America, Cape Spear Lighthouse, 47, 31, 14 north, 52, 37, 26 west. That's quite a ways to the east, by the way. Where I live normally is quite a bit to the west of that. I think that we're in the Washington, D.C. area. I believe that we're something like 80 to 90 degrees west latitude. So to be at 52 is quite a ways to the east. 47 degrees north is pretty far north too, by the way. 47 is pretty far up there. In any case, though, yep, that is the most easterly point in North America. So, and there's a little cross there, but again, interesting stuff. So this is the most easterly point in North America. This is the end of the Trans-Canada Highway, if you're curious. So the Trans-Canada Highway goes from St. John's, and it goes all the way across Canada, crosses Newfoundland, then goes onto the mainland, crosses all the way through the Maritimes, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, and then the dead end point for the Trans-Canada Highway is here. It's actually in Victoria, is where the Trans-Canada ends, and I'm going to go to another picture show here when I was in Canada on that trip. Which one is it? Hold on. I have this, not Canadian Rockies. This one was Pacific Northwest. When I was in Victoria, I was able to see, oh no wait, never mind, it's on this day's worth, was able to see the dead end point of that same road. Hold on, where is it? It's somewhere in this group. Oh, this is a peacock that I saw. Maybe I'll show these pictures another time, these deer that I ran into. Here it is, mile 0 of the Trans-Canada Highway. So from one end of the Trans-Canada Highway to the other, Victoria, British Columbia to St. John's, Newfoundland. So I've traveled a lot in Canada is what that gets down to, is the thing. So anyway, like I said, the two ends of the Trans-Canada Highway. I've been to most of the Canadian provinces at this point. All right, anyways, those are just some more pictures of the rocks to see what that looks like. Now there's a town in Newfoundland called Dildo. I am not making that up. That is the name of the town. So I, of course, on my way over, driving over to the ferry to head back to the mainland, I had to get a picture of this location. Had to get a picture of that. So this is the post office, and this is the Dildo Dory Grill. So call me childish, call me whatever, but I had to just see what this looked like. Alrighty, so this is finally wrapping up this trip, getting back on the ferry, the Marine Atlantic, the sign welcoming you to Newfoundland and Labrador. But of course, in this case, it's leaving Newfoundland and Labrador, and this is the ferry boat that took us back over. This was a huge ship. Huge ship over to Newfoundland. This one does the ferry from Newfoundland. I'll go back to the map. Hold on. We got to go way out across Canada over to the other side again. This travels from a place called Argentia right here. So you get on the ferry boat here at Argentia, and then it crosses all the way down here back over to Cape Breton and North Sydney. So that is a long ferry boat ride. This ride took about it was supposed to take 16. It actually took 18, which I don't really understand because we had perfect weather, no waves, no chop at all. It was just a very placid sea. But it took about 18 hours to cross that, and that was an overnight ferry. This was not cheap either, by the way. It cost quite a lot of money to take this with a car. But anyways, had to get back to the mainland somehow, and had to get your car back too. I didn't take more pictures on this ferry because I'd already been on a ferry before, and it wasn't that interesting. So, one last thing to look at, shall we? I did, of course, then, well, just getting back to North Sydney didn't mean that I was, back to where I live. So, from there in Cape Breton, I had to drive all the way through Cape Breton, through Nova Scotia, through New Brunswick, through Maine, down into New England. I stayed in Portsmouth. I had intended to spend some time in Portsmouth, spend a couple hours there, but I didn't get to Portsmouth until 8 p.m., and I had been driving for about 13 hours at that point, so I was pretty tired. So I just stayed in the hotel. I didn't take any pictures. And then the next day, I drove back from Portland, back through New England, through New York, Pennsylvania, and back down to Maryland, where I live in this area. So what was the grand total for all that driving? Let's go ahead and take a look, shall we? Well, I took a picture of the odometer on the first day in my rental car, so 64.23. On the odometer. What does the odometer read after that trip? Well, 11,497 miles. So if you add that up, that adds up to about 5,050 miles. Or in terms of kilometers, it's about 8K. It's very close to that. It's right around 8,000 kilometers. That's a lot of driving. That was in 15 days. So I drove 5,000 miles in 15 days. While sightseeing all the time. And I did not have anyone to share the driving. That was all me. So, going back to Google Maps, let's go ahead and just give a direction, an example of that, shall we? So, if you want to know how far 5,000 miles is driving, it is roughly from Orlando, Florida, over to, what's the word I'm looking for? Dead Horse, Prudhoe Bay in Alaska. So, if you do the directions here, note that this is about 5,100 miles, so within 50 miles. So it would basically be like driving from Orlando, Florida to Prudhoe Bay in Alaska, if you want to know how far that is. So that's how far I drove if you go in a straight line instead of driving in a circle. And that was in 15 days. So a lot of driving. In fact, the rental car I used actually had the change the oil light come on. It needed an oil change because when I hit about the 4,000 mile marker, the oil change light came on. So I don't know what the rental car people thought when I got it back, but you know what? When I rented that car, it said unlimited mileage, and I used my unlimited mileage. I don't know what they thought when they got that car back, but they didn't charge me anything extra because, as they said, you do get unlimited mileage. Maybe someday I'll do a drive like this. That would be pretty fun, but would also probably be ruinously expensive. So anyway, that's my trip through Canada. Long delayed in 4 parts, but I hope people enjoyed it. Anyway, so I'll just end this with a call or a request for people who might be watching this. I know a lot of people who are watching are people who are, college aged or teenagers. If you have the chance to travel, go ahead and take it. If you have the chance to, whether it's a study abroad, whether you have the chance to go and see stuff, go and explore, go see things, go do things. Because in the end, life is short, and when you get to travel, you get to see new things, experience new places, new people, and you get great stories that you can tell people about your time where you've gone to different places and seen different things. So I'd encourage anyone watching, if you've got some money, take it and use it and go exploring. Pick a place you want to go and make it happen. You can travel relatively cheaply if you're willing to travel at odd hours, at odd times, if you're willing to travel in no-frills situations, you can do it. I've been in graduate school for a long time now, and I don't have a ton of money, but I use what I do have to travel, and I've seen some great things. So I encourage you guys to go out and do it too. All right, anyway, once again, hope you guys enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later this week. At the end of this week, because I'll be away the next 2 days. Anyway, until then, have a good one. See you guys later. Take care.